Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it is the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the M.O.A. broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we are doing something a little different today. Right now, I am doing this. You'll have to forgive me if I'm a little off or the timing isn't quite there or the settings, the audio, whatever. We're doing this as a YouTube live broadcast first. Been wanting to try this out, had a couple of emails about it. Never really done a YouTube live other than like a quick one on my phone before. And so now we're going to go ahead and try this and see what happens. If it turns out well, we'll go ahead and upload this video to the Patreon and the Spotify pages and everything else. If not, we'll try and just pull the audio and upload it as our regular podcast type format, whether you get that on Spotify or Apple or Amazon or from the gearconvoy.com website. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. This is a little strange for me. The sound and the audio is not quite what I'm used to. So again, you'll have to forgive me if I am a little off here. I can't really hear it nearly as well as I usually do, even though I've got the audio cranked up. I'm sure it's through my fault. I have no idea what I'm doing here. So anyway, let's jump right into it. Episode 38 of the M.O.A., the Make It Out Alive broadcast. Today we've got bourbon, blades, and testosterone. Why men can't take the heat anymore. The we will get into the nature of that title here as we go through the episode. And I'm not sure if this is going to be a 15, 20, or 30-minute episode. It's going to depend on how I feel and how well I adapt to this format of YouTube Live. So anyway, that's the basic outline, though. Let's see. Yeah, if I can't download the video and add the soundtrack properly, this would just be an audio episode for everyone else. And you folks, you may or may not know this, but I'm a bit of a night owl. So I do a lot of the stuff that I do, whether it's working or doing the broadcasts on the radio or, whatever, in the middle of the night, like 2, 3, 4 a.m. out here on Pacific time. I'm in Oregon, the high desert of Southern Oregon. So, that way it comes very fresh and early to you if you're on the East Coast. If you're around the world, then, obviously time zone is different, all that. But it was a beautiful fall day here at 4,200 feet in the hills of Southern Oregon for dinner last night. For those of you that are interested, I had a couple of questions about cooking steaks. We've addressed that before, but had a delicious New York strip last night, cooked rare, that was done on the griddle. Nice, beautiful crust, a crisp on the outside, a good sear on there, using avocado oil. So that is my favorite way of doing steaks. I like doing charcoal. There's the train in the background. You'll hear some interference or noise in the background. We film these and record these out here in the shop because it's just so much more of an open feeling than do it in the sound booth. I don't really like doing it in the sound booth. It doesn't feel very natural, and it's a little claustrophobic, frankly. But anyway, that is what's going on in the background. I live a couple hundred meters away from railroad tracks, so we have that going on in the background. Let's see, where did my thing go? Here we are. So I've talked about the steaks before. What I had with it on the side was, I've mentioned one of my number one meals of all time is steak and eggs. And my favorite way to have eggs, probably of all time, is I don't know exactly what it's technically called, but if you do a search, whether it's a video or an internet search over or for a Michelin star chef style scrambled eggs, it is absolutely amazing. So it's not, unfortunately, the traditional American way of getting scrambled eggs is they're almost like hard chunks of burnt rubber. I hate scrambled eggs that are like all charred, or they have the texture of a tractor trailer tire, and they're just really big burnt chunks or hard, heavy, chunks of scrambled egg. If you do the Michelin star scrambled eggs, you do it over high heat. Now, you've got to have a good non-stick pan for this, because the easiest and fastest way is to do it over medium to medium high heat. And then you'll put them on 30 seconds on heat and keep it moving, and then take it off. And you kind of just go back and forth between 30 to 45 seconds or so on and off heat. And that prevents the eggs from burning and getting too well done, but it also kind of speeds the process up. You're going to add a couple of, nice pats of butter to that, and a little bit of, I like avocado oil. You can use whatever you want. Anyway, that's what we had for dinner last night. Absolutely delicious. That with a strip steak, followed by a smoky glass of bourbon, was absolutely fantastic. Now, we had a couple of emails, and this is going to be more like one of the fireside chat style shows. than one of my traditional, commentary and news and knife and everything else style shows. We got a couple of questions. We'll go. Let me see. I wrote this down. Let me get my notes in order. We'll kind of go through this based on the outline we got here, and this is going to be pretty extemporaneous. So, like I said, it'll be a little off the cuff today. Why we only cover certain news items here on the M.O.A. broadcast, guys. So this episode is being recorded early Thursday morning. All right. So the news is already broken around the country and around the world that Jimmy Kimmel got his show was put, quote unquote, indefinitely on hold. Basically, they either axed him or fired him or whatever, and they haven't made the final decision. Their lawyers are probably working through that now. And I'm not laughing at him. It's just this whole debacle has gotten so out of control. But why do we only cover certain news stories? Number one, we don't get political here, even though we're going to cover political events because that's primarily what is in the news these days. You're going to see me take shots at both sides, have a little bit of a laugh at everybody's expense, but we're not going to sit here and get mired down in constant political coverage. Guys, there are literally thousands of podcasts and streamers and shows and news and platforms to get all the political news you could possibly ever want. Plus, you've got things like social media, like X, Twitter, TikTok, and so forth. I don't want to sit here and do that. Everybody else is already doing that. And frankly, it's so much of it. The political news cycle is so negative. I can't even hardly take it anymore. When I'm doing preparation for my show, I'm constantly looking through news stories and finding things that I think would be interesting to share with my listeners and the things that interest me, along with practical, survival tips. We discuss a lot of things, preparedness and so forth. So much of it is political, and people have become so divided and so hateful and angry about it. I don't want to do that. And if you like that information or that content, or you want more of that content, I'm not criticizing. There is tons of it out there. You can get all you want, but that is not really the purpose of what we do here at the M.O.A. broadcast. So we're not going to dig deep into that. We saw with this Charlie Kirk assassination that happened. I didn't cover that because it's on the news nonstop. You literally cannot go on social media or news sites and not get more information and coverage. So I try and bring, my listeners, even though this is a growing, platform for me here at the podcast level, in the radio show, I try and bring them stuff that not everybody is covering. So you get a little bit of a different, taste of what's going on. And hopefully sometimes it's fun. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's tragic, but we don't try and do the same exact thing that everybody else is doing. And the same thing, I had a couple of questions about why I've either bleeped things out or I don't cover, certain, topics that get a lot of traction on other podcasts and other shows and videos. We do our best here to keep things PG-13. Okay, or less, closer to PG, because I want this to be a show you can listen to if you got your kids in the room. The whole concept for this show was really just to have a little fun. It was never meant to be digging in deep and bringing you the hardest hitting news and all this kind of stuff constantly. It was talk about what's going on in the world, things that interest me, how to be better prepared, situational preparedness, the knives and the gear and the things that I do that interest me. Surprisingly enough, I've gotten, hundreds, if not thousands of email. Well, it's easily thousands actually, because I know I've deleted hundreds at a time over the years about the things that interest me. For some reason, that appeals to a very small group of people out there. I'm happy to share that. I'd rather do that than just get caught up into talking endlessly about violence and war and political stuff. And frankly, whenever I did some research just to kind of see what the feel was like for podcasts and other types of media and content out there, I listened to a handful of different things on the different platforms when I first started out. And I don't really do that anymore. I don't listen to anybody's show other than little snippets I'll catch on social media. Not because I'm against anybody or I'm better than them in my mind or anything, but I just like to do my own thing. I've never really consumed a lot of other people's content. That's just not, part of how I operate, personally. So much of it was focused on just like shock value. It was like a bunch of little Howard Stern Juniors running around talking about, a lot of sexual content and a lot of other using tons of profanity, almost like to shock people. And if that works, then then more power to them. So much the better for them. But that's not what I wanted to do. So that's kind of the goal and, the ethos and the theme, the focus of what we're doing here on the M.O.A. broadcast. So that is, where we're at with that. Now, let me have a quick sip here. That was actually one of the questions that I got in recent emails that we're going to go ahead and address. What are you drinking out of your glass or your mug or your tumbler during the episodes? It depends. So most of the time, I'm doing these episodes early in the morning or late at night, however you want to look at that. And it's usually one of three things. It's either going to be bourbon, either straight up or with a nice one of those big ice cubes. So the problem with these small ice cubes is they melt very quickly. I usually drink my bourbon straight up. I'm a huge fan of bourbon. I do not get drunk. I'm not a fan of overindulgence, whether it's food or drink. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone or criticizing. I'm just sharing the facts here. But I don't drink to get drunk. I drink it to enjoy the flavor of a good smoky bourbon. But I like one of those big. I have those molds. It's like a plastic and silicone mold to create the large round ice cubes. You need, I have a bigger glass for them, like a shot glass. I love those because they last longer. They don't leach as much water seemingly into your drink as the smaller ice cubes that melt much faster. So they're going to be bourbon on the rocks or straight up, or it's going to be a Tom Collins. Now, Tom Collins is a fantastic drink for me. I enjoy it. It's kind of the same reason why I wear the Hawaiian shirts or the Aloha shirts, depending on where you come from. It puts me in a mood. It changes my perspective, and it puts me in a certain frame of mind that makes it, more lighter and more fun to do what I'm going to do. Whether it's working in the shop, whether it's running errands around town, or whether it's what doing the broadcast or whatever it is, that puts me in a certain frame of mind. That's why, like the Tom Collins. That is what I'm having today in one of these thermos or tumbler type things. If you can't see, if the video doesn't come out, delicious drink, kind of a tropical feel. It's not as fruity as some of the others, but it has a tropical feel. Gin, lemon juice, and club soda. So that's what we're drinking. Or finally, it would be coffee. Coffee is, I'm a huge, huge coffee fan. If I do the show late enough in the night to where it's like 4, 5, 6 a.m. Pacific time, then we're going to go ahead and switch over to coffee because that means we're just getting the day started and we're going to keep powering through. Not going to be sitting there knocking back drinks at 5, 6 a.m. and then try and go and be productive, because after the show is done, we got to edit, we got to do the audio, visual, get everything lined up, uploading, downloading, uploading, and all this stuff. That takes time. So, also, something I wanted to bring up is the brew pubs. Man, I tell you what, I haven't really been in a town or followed up on this much, but I wonder, are the brew pub things, the tasting rooms, whatever they call them now, are those things still as much of a thing? I remember when I lived in Portland, going back several years, somewhere around like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, up until like 2020, 2021. I think COVID really dealt a smashing blow to a lot of these brew pubs. In cities like Portland, they were all over the place. Like you would literally be driving across town, and from day to day, you would see new ones pop up. And these were just like, they would rent a small space and put a few taps and a few like crappy chairs in. The ones that had more money to throw at it, did a nicer job. But these brew pubs, they popped up everywhere. They usually had like a really limited menu. To me, that was kind of the thing that I didn't like, was you go there, and if I'm gonna sit there and drink several beers, I would like some food too, because it's probably around dinner time or whatever else. But a lot of them would have like crackers and nuts and things like this. And anyway, the IPAs? The IPAs were the huge thing. And I don't really follow anybody or keep up on this kind of stuff now. So I don't know if the IPAs are nearly as big now, but I felt like there was kind of a crash several years ago. And I know I've seen in several different like comedy scenes and things, they're making fun of the IPA drinkers because, again, I don't know what it was like around the country, but in Portland, the IPA was the king. Everything had to be an IPA. And, it was just, I was never a huge fan. I tried to get into it. There were a couple that I liked, but I just was not a big fan of the flavor. And also around the same time, regular beer or the craft beers and like the higher end beers, the imports and such, they started going through the roof. And for me, it was more of a principle thing. It wasn't so much that I, couldn't afford. I mean, I can pay $12 for a six pack or whatever it was, $15, but you know, it was more the principle. I'm not going to sit here and pay $3 to get a Sam Adams, bottle of beer at home. This is at home. This is grocery store prices. Beer went through the roof. And several of the others, I had, a lot of different beers that I liked over the years. And I just kind of have the premium beers, if you want to call them, that I got away from. So I kind of settled down into drinking Coors out of the bottle, the little stubby glass bottles, and I was fine with that. A couple of those, and I was good to go. But man, those IPAs, it was everybody became this IPA snob. They talked endlessly about this IPA and that IPA and the hops note and all this different, different stuff. I couldn't take it. I got so tired of it. So, anyway, that is more information than you probably wanted to know. Now, let's see where are we on time on this? Okay, we're doing pretty good. All right, let's go on. Next point, hollow handle survival knives. Okay, I have made it pretty clear, and I've talked about this a number of times. I'm a knife maker. I design and I build and have been for nearly 15 years now. Survival knives and knives in general, but the vast majority of what I make and sell is either fully handmade, custom, or mid tech. And mid tech, for those of you not in the knife industry, is simply a term where you have maybe some of the components are made. Everything I get is done here in the U.S., which is massively more expensive than having it done overseas. But it's important to me to get it done that way for quality control and other reasons. So mid-tech is when you have some of the components made outside of your shop and they come to your shop, and I will do all the final fit and finish and the coatings and so forth like that here in the Wilson Custom Knives shop. And there's a lot of videos of me testing the durability and talking about the different, functions and characteristics of hollow handle survival knives. If you do a quick search on YouTube for Wilson Custom Knives, excuse me, you will find no shortage of information. So, hollow handled survival knives are the only solution for survival knives? Guys, absolutely not. I've talked about this a number of times. I, of course, love to talk about and share the things that I do in the knives that I've designed and made and tested over the years here on my, on my radio show and my podcast and my channel and all this other, whatever. But by all means, get whatever you want. I'm a big fan of stainless. A lot of people are still into carbon steels. Fine. No one is saying that if you walk out in the woods with either a stainless or a carbon steel knife, you're just going to drop dead and expire at the first sign of, moisture or work or whatever else. Use whatever you want. That is the beauty. We have a knife market right now that is so rich and saturated with so many options. You can literally get almost anything you want in almost any configuration right now for a reasonable price. And you can even choose between made domestically or made overseas. There is a phenomenal selection of knives, whether it be for bushcraft, survival, hunting, EDC, that stands for everyday carry for those of you not in the business. There are literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of options out there, and a lot of them at very, very reasonable prices and using the most cutting edge material. So get whatever you want. I happen to like hollow handle survival knives. Again, like many of you out there, I was a child of the 80s. First Blood, the first Rambo film, made a huge impression on me and many, many others, along with other films that either, incorporated hollow handle survival knives or, just alluded to the concept or whatever. And they're just fun. It's fun to be able to unscrew that cap and take your survival materials out of the hollow handle, and create little kits for the sheath and for the inside of the handle and whatever it is you're doing. Okay. Now, are they as durable? Or as strong? That's probably a better way. Are they as strong as a full tang knife? That's a bizarre or a difficult question to really answer, and I'll tell you why. Because strength is not the primary purpose of a knife. A knife needs to be as strong, and strong for the purposes of this conversation and this context would mean it's not going to break easily. Either the blade snapping off at the hilt or the guard or the handle or whatever, or, if you're going to baton, it's going to have the durability at the edge and the construction design and so forth. The hollow handled survival knives were designed to give you an emergency backup. It's a redundancy kit that you have inside the handle of the knife. Okay. I'm a big fan of that concept. If you're not and you don't like it or you don't want it, don't use it. Like I said, there's a huge market out there for all kinds of knives right now. You can get anything you want. But when it comes to are they as strong? I'll put it like this. When it comes to the world of material science, a basic principle is that the more material you have on something, the stronger it's going to be. So the larger, thicker, longer, whatever a blade is, the stronger it's going and tougher it's going to be, to put it very, very in layman's terms. Okay. That being said, do a search on the internet for broken, custom, hollow handled survival knives. By putting the word custom in there, that's going to rule out all of the junk, the flea market junk that came out in the 80s. Because after Rambo, First Blood, and all these other kind of movies came out that featured hollow handled survival knives, a lot of companies did the capitalist thing, and I'm not knocking them. They jumped on the bandwagon and produced tons of these cheap junk made, hollow handled survival knives that were sold at flea markets. They were trash for the most part. They had horrible design. They had a tiny little tang. And at the most critical point, the most critical juncture where the blade reduces its size and goes down into the guard, they made several huge mistakes as far as design just to rush it to market and keep it cheap. Those are junk. But if you're talking about well-made, there were some well-made, fairly priced, competitively priced mass marketed knives that were hollow handled that were available then that were good. Okay. That being said, most of the ones you see break are the cheap junk ones, the ones that are made from like Harbor Freight for $8 to this day, or the ones that were $5.99 or $6.99 or 99 cents going back, 20, 30, 40 years ago in the back of magazines and so forth. Those were junk. If you do an image search or an internet search for broken custom hollow handled survival knife, I've found over the years like anywhere from 2 to 4 pictures, okay, of broken, high quality custom hollow handled survival knives. Now, there are also going to be much lower numbers of these custom made ones out there because the cost is very high. And for people that wonder why is it so expensive? Guys, these compared to what's called a three-piece knife, a standard full tang knife, to design and then to make consistently, efficiently and economically and very practically to make these hollow handled survival knives, it is a lot of work. There are a number of steps that we overcome. It's just a lot. You've got a guard, you've got a butt cap, you've got machining that goes on, lathe work, mill work, and so forth. It is not the easiest way to make a knife. To make a standard three-piece knife is very simple. You design your knife, you cut it out and do the profiling work, you do the grinds or drill the holes, however you do it, and then you heat treat it. And then whenever it's done from heat treat, you finish up your grinds, put on your handle slab, and then grind away everything that's not a knife. It's very, very simple and easy if you are a knife maker. So that's what keeps the cost high, though, is having all these different components, having the machine work, the lathe work, and all this stuff. So, but the bottom line is designed properly and well made. They are extremely durable, and you're not going to really have a problem with them breaking in normal use. Again, if you look at the videos I put out there, I have beat on these things viciously with a ball bat, with a club, with an axe handle. That's not going to be your problem. They're not going to break inside the handle or they have the blade just come flying off. Now, all of that being said, they're designed to be used as a knife, as a cutting implement, not as a demolition tool. If you use them, a well-made knife, to sit there and cut and slice properly, you're going to be fine. Okay. And if you don't like that style of knife, don't get one. But I bring that up and talk about it regularly because that's a big part of my business and what I do. And I have a very loyal following to those from those people that enjoy quality hollow handled survival knives. So that's that. Very briefly, I'll touch on this. Let me get a sip here. My throat is a little dry. Because I live in the high desert where everything is very dry, wildfires are a very common occurrence here. I'm only about 2 hours from Northern California, from the California border. And so wildfires every year. So we have fires occasionally or regularly during the season here. And you get the smoke kind of all day long during fire season. It takes a beating on your throat, especially when you talk as much as I wind up doing for the radio show and all this other stuff. Okay, one other thing. And I've just put out a couple of videos on this. Again, if you look up Wilson Custom Knives on YouTube, you're going to get all kinds of information on this. Just put out a couple of videos on this. The most common misunderstanding, in my opinion, is that the tang needs to be longer on a hollow handled survival knife. You've got to understand, guys, this is physics. Look at it as trying to break a wooden dowel rod. Would you rather, let's say you put it into a vise on your bench, would you rather try and break a wooden dowel rod? Let's say it's a 1/4 inch, so it's something that's easily breakable, by hand strength alone. Would you rather break one that was only, or one that was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches long, or one that was only sticking up out of the vise by a 1/4 of an inch, or a 1/2 inch, or 3/4 of an inch? Obviously, the longer that the tang extends in the handle, all you're really doing is creating a longer or a larger lever for yourself to break it. The tang is encapsulated, at least in my knives. The tang is encapsulated and surrounded by epoxy, steel, and or aluminum inside of a steel handle. Okay, it is reinforced there. If you break it, it will be right before or right after the guard. Okay. A longer tang is only taking away your storage space inside the hollow handle. And what's the point of having a hollow handle survival knife if you don't have much, if any, storage space inside there? So my tangs are shorter, but the point is it's physics, guys. It's science, bro. The longer that tang, you're just giving yourself a longer lever. And I've demonstrated this in numerous videos. Go demonstrate it to yourself, to your satisfaction. Now, again, if we try and break it, of course, we can make these things. If you want to make them stronger, you can always make it stronger. If you want to make something unbreakable, that's a different story. But if you want to make it stronger, there's always a way. The point of being a true knife designer and maker, though, is not trying to make the most unbreakable knife that ever existed. The point is just like you're trying to design a car, an automobile, or any other object, you want the best balance of quality, of durability and toughness and strength and so forth, balanced with the other attributes that you need, like in a car. If we made them all out of, thick stainless steel plate, they would be much tougher, but they'll be very heavy, get much worse gas mileage, and they would be very, very expensive. Same thing with knives. Okay. If we sit here and just try and make them literally bomb proof, you're adding more weight, you're losing balance, you're losing storage space, or whatever kind of knife it is. And you're adding a great deal to the expense. And what's the point? A knife is designed to cut. And let me tell you something. The longer you live in life, in general, the way the trend tends to go, the longer you live in life and the more experienced you become using your tools and your knife and whatever else you've got, the more concerned you're going to be with how light and how useful something is for the purpose that you want it for, not how indestructible it is. That phase tends to kind of pass away as you get, as you continue to mature in life and you're worried about carrying along dead weight on hikes or walking around town or whatever it is. So, I'll leave it at that. You do you. That's me. That's my philosophy. In the end, what I always tell people is when I get to a new client or a client comes to me and they want a particular design or whatever else, sometimes it's more important to go with the person who designs and thinks the way you do and the way you want than it is to go with maybe someone whose aesthetic you like. And I'll tell that to people sometimes when they come to me and they want a certain type of knife. I'm like, you know what? This particular maker over here will be a better fit for you because they're more aligned with, your perception, your ethos, and how you want this done. So that's that. I'm at the point where I'm much more interested in having a knife that will slice well, that will cut aggressively, and that is as light as reasonably possible while still maintaining full durability. And again, I've got the videos where I've shown what these knives can take. So there you go. That's my thoughts on that. Let's move on to our next subject, the hollow handle survival. Oh, man, this is the one. Let me get a quick sip here. Okay, that's good. This is the topic that I really want to dig into, and we'll probably spend the least amount of time on it just because it is what you're either going to get it and agree or disagree or not, and we're going to move on. What happened to all the testosterone in men today? What is wrong? I'm not going to, I've made several jokes, as you probably imagine, if you're a follower or if you listen to my show or whatever. I'm a pretty blunt person, and I was raised very traditionally in the Midwest, and I'm also an observer of life, and I'm a very pragmatic person. So that's going to lead you to several conclusions very quickly about the differences between men and women. So I've made jokes about the differences between men and women before, whatever. Today, though, we're picking on men. What in the world has happened to men today? They have become a joke. They are so weak and soft and emotional compared to what they were for thousands of years. And let me give you a few examples so you understand where I'm coming from and to contextualize this, what we're talking about. Okay. Men have become so whiny and lack accountability and just cannot, their egos have become so fragile that at the first sign of disagreeing or of exposing or correcting them or saying something they disagree with, a lot of guys, they literally fall to pieces. And let's illustrate it like this. I used to be a big fan or a decent fan. Something on my collar here. Let's fix that. Okay, I used to be a decent fan of some of the forums that are online about knives and outdoors and so forth. And I would go participate in these forums. And you've always had people that I'm a pretty blunt person, and you may have noticed I tend to be a little sassy at times. That comes with growing up as a redhead and a number of other things in my life. But I'm a very blunt person. However, if you know me in person, face to face, I would never, ever talk to somebody online in a way that I wouldn't address you face to face. And in general, it's with a great deal of respect. However, sometimes it doesn't always translate to the written word in like social media or online posts. So I get it. Excuse me. But I have, laid off a lot of the forums, not participated nearly as much because in recent years, number one, that a lot of them have deteriorated to the point where they're no longer the hub of activity, the hive of activity that they used to be. Number two, everybody just wants to argue. And you're posting a lot around a lot of other guys that are allegedly full-grown men. And if you say anything that sets them off in the least little way, they lose their mind. I have been attacked personally so many times. I can't count it. Just because I posted a literal fact, didn't necessarily aim it at someone. And somebody somehow was so sensitive, they took offense to this and came after me and or my business and whatever else. Now, make no mistake, I have gone after a few people and really not, lit them up with sarcastic posts or whatever else. But in general, I have had more blowback from just posting facts. And let me give you an example. What were the ones that I had? I wrote down here. Okay. So here's a good. This is the boiled linseed oil. Boiled linseed oil is a finish of sorts. I wouldn't really call it a finish because it's not a great finish. It does kind of meet the technical requirements of finish. I've got a background in coatings going back close to 30 years at this point. Okay, and if you find that unlikely, I don't really care. I can prove everything that I'm saying right now. Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave it alone. On a forum post one time, these guys were talking about on one of the outdoor forums. They were talking about using boiled linseed oil for a finish on something. I posted a few literal facts from that were based on experience, but are also verifiable facts about boiled linseed oil. And a couple of grown men who, according to the ages they posted, were easily close to retirement or above retirement age. Okay, they came after me and started just posting all kind of attacking me, questioning my knowledge, saying that I should have, college education degree to talk about using boiled linseed oil. For those of you who don't know, boiled linseed oil, you can buy it in the hardware store by the gallon. Okay. I've got it, like I said, a rather long, past or history in the coating industry. I have used dozens, if not hundreds, of gallons of linseed oil over the years because for a while I worked with antiques and a number of other things and used several gallons, sometimes a week, of boiled linseed oil. And these guys were so butthurt about just, I wasn't even talking to anyone in particular, but they started attacking me because the part of the problem is with forums, what it really boils down to is it's just like high school. It's a popularity contest. And basically, people will side with whoever they like the most over whoever is factually correct. And I always use my name. Sam Wilson out there is my forum name. A lot of other people use forum names for whatever reason. I don't care. It's very easy to attack somebody and go after their business and call for boycotts. I had people try and call for boycotts of my business, attack my website, and all kinds of things because they didn't like the facts that I posted about things. Whatever. What are you going to do? That's men have become so sensitive today. I had a couple a while back. I had a guy. I posted something, and I don't even know who this guy is. Apparently, I've met him. I didn't realize at the time, but I've met him. He went out and made a video making fun of me because a post that wasn't even about him or directed at him. I guess it got so deep into his feelings that he felt the need to go and make a whole video about me. And the things that I said when it had nothing to do with him, and he misinterpreted and lost the point of what I was trying to say. One day I started getting all these emails from, hey, this guy posted a video about you. And I watched somebody, I don't really care. It was so lame. There's been a couple of guys make videos about me, but this one was so lame. Why am I even watching this? But why are grown men making videos about other grown men because they said something they didn't kind of like? And this is the problem we're having, man. I haven't been in the regular like workforce for years, but I do remember going back several years, closer to 10 years back than anything. When you were training new employees, you would correct them or give them direction, and these guys that are like 20, 25, almost 30 years old, they couldn't be told that they don't know that they're doing it wrong. You would have to sit there and literally find ways to beg and plead with them to do what you're telling them to do when you're their trainer and they're a new hire. So it's a problem. I think a lot of it honestly comes from raising and from family life and so forth. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know. But it's a shame because that's where we're at, and we're seeing this right now. The point of all this to draw it all together is we're seeing people that now we have a whole generation or two of people that when they hear things they don't like, when they hear words they don't like, they don't know how to deal with it and cope with it, and they choose to react with violence and or attacking people very nastily online. So it's a real shame. And I think part of it is the testosterone. You look at these, you look at a lot of these guys, they have next to no testosterone. They've got the skin of like an 87-year-old woman, you know, and they couldn't grow facial hair to save their life. And not that that's the end all be all, but I mean, in general, those are signs of testosterone. But it is sad, and it is what it is. But that's where we're at. And we got to deal with it now. One last thing I'll put in here, and then I'll move on. The breakdown in society continues because every year, and I mean literally every year, I send out literally thousands of dollars worth of free product to both clients and vendors and service providers that I work with. This has been going on for several years now. Okay. I will send out unsolicited with their orders. Sometimes I will just send out custom made product or standard retail product that I produce here in the shop. And do you know, after literally, I mean, beyond thousands of dollars a year, do you know how many thank yous I get per year? The average is zero. Most of the time, nobody says thank you. I can tell you this, I haven't received more than 5 thank yous in the last, like, what, 3, 4 years now. And I don't do it to get a thank you. I don't do it to get anything. It's just something I do out of, that's how I do business. I like to try and reward people or send them something good to show I appreciate their business. And it is just shocking to me. Most people don't say thank you. Sometimes I'll send an email and be like, "Hey, did you get that free product that I sent?" "Oh, yeah, I did." And they still, you know, whatever. I've even seen in instances where I've sent people free custom made product out of my shop. They never said thank you, and they literally turned around and sold it for a profit. And my point is, all of this is related. We're seeing a breakdown in society, and it's really sad. So if you're a parent, man, do your job, train your kids, and make sure they don't turn into those kind of people. So that's we're going to move on. That's going to cover it. Was there anything else? No. Okay. Let's go ahead and close it out, folks, with a Florida man story. For this, we go to Spring Hill, Florida. Let me get one sip before we kick it off. Okay. A Brooksville man charged after threatening people with a knife at a Spring Hill gas station. According to the sheriff's office, the story comes to us via Fox 13 News. Spring Hill, Florida. A man who threatened multiple people at a Spring Hill gas station on Saturday is facing aggravated assault charges, according to the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. That's HCSO. Eric Foreman. I'm pretty sure that's the name of the kid off of the 70s show program. Eric Foreman, no relation, I'm guessing, 44, was walking around with a knife threatening people near a mobile gas station, allegedly, before deputies located him across the street at the Exxon gas station. When Foreman was confronted, he allegedly began moving towards the responding deputy with a knife in an aggressive manner. The deputy then deployed OC spray gel on Foreman, causing him to fall to one knee. But he didn't drop the knife. Not then, folks. He was committed. When other deputies and highway patrol troopers arrived to assist, Foreman allegedly stated he would stab any deputy that approached him, according to the sheriff's office. They then deployed tasers on Foreman, which did not bring him down and failed to subdue him. Finally, they shot him with less lethal shotgun rounds before he was finally subdued and taken into custody. He was taken to the Hernando County Detention Center, and his bond has been set at $10,000. Investigators say that nobody was injured during the incident. Foreman was no stranger to the law, though, folks. He had been previously arrested in 2022 for arson, criminal mischief, and simple assault. He was arrested on another assault charge the year prior. Just another day in Florida, folks. All right, that's going to do it, folks. Remember, don't wait until you have an emergency to prepare. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.